Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining me for another episode of the Grow Rogue podcast. Today, I'm joined by Tod Petty. Tod is the CMO of Fin Technologies, and they are driving innovation in the senior housing space. And some of the things that Tod and I discuss in this episode are the confluence of AI, human intelligence, and predictive analytics. And he helped me coin a term, I'm going to steal it, about the Renaissance marketer. And so I really hope that you will watch through the entire episode because we talked about a lot of really interesting things about the future of marketing and the future of content. So thank you for joining us, and make sure you stick around for the whole episode. Tod, what's the biggest challenge that we're facing right now as marketers, as business leaders? The world's a little crazy. It's an election year. What's the biggest problem that you're seeing, and what are you guys doing to overcome that?
Wow, Reade, what a great question. There's so many different things that are attacking us that we have to overcome. I mean, obviously, the world is a noisy place now. We're being inundated by messages from the competitive marketplace, from competitors. And to add to that, we now have this great invention called AI, which I believe will be transformational to us and will change the world. But many people can jump in the game now and partner with AI to also now inundate us with more messages that are not so targeted and maybe may not have an emotional connection to us. And then we have folks that really I think struggle in the marketing world of figuring out the message to deliver to us, to connect with us, to have an opportunity to show a product. And so what that means is they may try to be like us. They might try to figure us out and try to be like us to connect with us. And look, I'm not looking for someone that's just like me. I don't need that. I'm looking for a subject matter expert like you in your space that knows more than I do, understands more than I do, that can help me, but maybe is similar to me. And then I think the messaging is all about value proposition, which that's great. I want to know the features and benefits of a product, but I think it needs to be more targeted in the world we live in to figure out what pain I'm actually experiencing now and solve the pain. I'm much more inclined to respond to that. And those are my challenges when I go out into the market of understanding what people's pain is, because I know there's a much higher response rate to a pain that's needed to be fixed now than for me to try to get someone's attention and share all the wonderful things about my product, my service, and how I can change their lives. So it's a busy, cluttered world, Reade.
I completely agree, and we talk about this all the time. Is I think people buy things for really one reason, right? It doesn't matter how big that purchase decision is, how expensive or how costly it is. They pay to make a pain go away. Right. They might buy things for luxury purposes, but really you have a problem and you're paying for that problem to go away. How do you figure out, and this is a really challenging thing, but how do you determine the pain point that you are going to be working on, that you're fixing, that you're solving? How do you figure that out? Your marketplace's real problem.
Well, I think we have an advantage of understanding what the pain in the market is. We are in the healthcare data analytics business. Fin Technology is. We've created a modern electronic health record platform, and we're not from Silicon Valley. We're an operator in Atlanta that owns and operates luxury senior housing properties. So we know how they operate and how they function and what goes inside of them. And then we surround ourselves with people, including like myself. I've been in the industry for 20 to 30 years, so I know what the pain of an operator, developer, owner is. And I think people that are coming into the space, if they would take the time to understand an industry rather than coming with presuppositions or ideas they already have, and do a little bit of a study of what that industry is really going through, then they could target those pains and present a solution that will overcome them and put someone on a pathway to eliminate the pain and keep moving forward and growing their businesses. So I think it's life experience in the industry, or consulting with someone that can do deep analytic research to figure out what's really going in, other than coming with presuppositions of what the customer wants, right? Isn't that the greatest mistake I think we make, is is going to market with a product that we will try to then convince you you need, you want, and that you will love because I love it, versus finding out what Reade needs, what are his pain points, and how I can target then my product to you to come up with a satisfactory experience.
Yeah, we talk about this a lot, and this is really challenging for especially business owners, founders, leaders who they have a deep connection with their business or their product. The tough pill to swallow sometimes is that you are not your customer. And so we tend to think like, oh, I would like this or I feel this way. And so I'm building a business or a product to make, that I think that I would want. And that's only relevant if you actually are the customer, if your demographic, psychographic makeup, all those kinds of things are identical to the customer. And that's really rarely the case. So here's the challenge that we're talking about already kind of early on in this conversation. We have a really noisy world, right? The proliferation of AI babble has made for a really loud and noisy and not super useful content and marketing environment. And then we have a very fast changing world, right? You're talking about analytics, and analytics is already, just the use of has already revolutionized in a lot of ways how we make business decisions. And then we have this really valuable, what I think is an increasingly undervalued aspect of business leadership, and that's experience and decision making. So how do we make sure that we are leveraging the right tools, not over leveraging those same things to create adverse outcomes and adverse product, and that we're using our experience and our skill that we've learned in all these years. You mentioned yours, and it's super valuable, but how do we not then rely on our presuppositions? So I know I'm throwing a lot at you, but I think that's a super interesting paradox there to figure out.
Yeah, that's a great point, Reed. And I do not know if I'm going to be able to answer this question that's going to bring much clarity, but I can at least share what I know we should be trying to do. And what I have discovered is that whether it's the senior housing industry I'm in, whether it's a SaaS industry, whether it's healthcare, what I've noticed is that moderation, a middle down the road approach is best, because everyone seems to be stuck in one direction or the other, one extreme or the other. And I know great people that have great tried and true operations. They have things that have worked their entire career. They build their future model of marketing and branding and sales on relationships and connecting and turning that into sales. But they are adverse to innovation. And so they get stuck in tried and true operations. And that's all they do. And wondering why that's no longer working. The world is changing. And then we have folks that have it all figured out. Sometimes they're younger. They have it all figured out, and it's all about innovation. It's all about the analytics and the data and psychographics, knowing exactly who my customer is in my 5 or 10 mile radius, or in my lead generation that I'm directly marketing to. I know all about them, and the algorithms are telling me about them. And so that's all we need. I don't need tried and true operations. I don't need emotional connection. I don't need to know them. I just need to hit them with this drip campaign. And they throw tried and true connection out. And then they miss it, because by the time they're with their client, the client is now wanting to develop a relationship of trust, and they can't do it. So I like the idea of the Renaissance. The Renaissance was a period of time when it was the middle Judeo-Christian Middle Age world, right? And then new innovation was coming. The emerging age of modernity was coming. And when those two things blended together, there was a Renaissance moment. And I think that's where we're living in marketing, branding, sales. We're in a Renaissance moment where we have to adapt both and blend both together. We can't leave the things behind that we've learned that have worked, but we can't leave innovation out that's going to change the world. Those two things have to be blended in everything we do to have a positive outcome. I don't know if that's an answer or not, but I'm trying to adapt that philosophy in all that we do.
No, it's a great answer, and we're gonna come up with a term on this podcast. We're going to call it like a renaissance entrepreneur or a renaissance marketer, because I love that connection that between these two, moments in history, right? My wife and I were talking about this the other day, that, how different our oldest son's going to be 10. His next birthday is going to be 10. And we're thinking how different the world is from 10 years ago and how different it was then from 10 years before that. And then but you start to reach a point where it's like, well, you kind of got to go 20 years before that, before things were too much different. Then maybe like 40 years. And so this rate of change is increasing so much that you either are going to have to accept that, well, there's nothing we can do to plan for tomorrow because it's all going to be so different, or we're going to reach a point where everybody just kind of throws up their hands and says, we're not just going to continually be chasing the new thing, right? We're going to apply some of these principles that we've learned over decades and decades, and we're going to leverage the tools. And yes, we're not going to reject modernity. We're not going to reject technological advancement, but we're not going to be able to just rely on the new thing that's going to come out, right? In my view, AI is the biggest, and it may be one of the last biggest changes, right? You had the smartphone and social media and the internet and things like that. Well, AI is the new thing. Everyone thought it was going to be blockchain. I mean, not that it isn't, right? But not that those things won't change things. But this seems like the biggest leap forward that we're going to have in quite some time. And so, with that being the case, I mean, let's try to look forward a little bit if we can. Let's you and I try to put on our Nostradamus hat. What do you think the next several years is going to look like? And let's just keep it focused on marketing. What is the trajectory going to take us to in the next few years? We're Renaissance marketers, we're Renaissance business leaders. What do those individuals need to be doing for the next few years to be really successful?
Yeah, that's great, great future forward thinking. So I think a person or a group or a business that is just holding steady and believing they can't really do anything of the upcoming changing world is really going to be at a disadvantage. I think there's a lot of misinformation out on AI, machine learning, and what it is and it's not going to do. And we already, people think AI will replace people, and somehow in their imaginations that they'll actually do the work and the job and people will no longer be needed. And I don't believe that by any stretch of the imagination. And being in the healthcare world, I see the emerging benefit of AI and how it's changing there, and how it's changing everywhere. And what I do see though is AI is able to, in the background, coalesce information, review at lightning speed data points, analyze, healthcare trend. It can analyze patient trends. In marketing, it can analyze what a buying trends and response rates. We don't need to be doing that because they do such a better job at it. And so if I'm relying on just doing that and I don't adopt AI, I'm probably going to be out of a job in a few years. But the people that will have jobs are those that embrace this emerging technology, and they are cooperating with AI, joining hands with HI, human intelligence, joining hands with business intelligence and AI together. And then we, as critical thinkers, can make the decision once we have the data that AI is going to provide. And I think a company CEO, CMO, CFO has to be in a position to be ready to do that and pivot in the coming years. Because I, as well as you, believe that AI will be the greatest game changer in the history of mankind. I'm not one to believe, to look at it as a negative thing. I mean, obviously there's challenges with it, but if we can incorporate it, we can be much better, do things much more targeted, and give a greater result to our customers that we need to take our product to via marketing, because it gets message market media. We're not having to test and test. We can be more targeted and connect with the right people that we need to be hooked up with.
I'm with you on almost all of that, right? I'm with you on, not that I don't agree. but I'm with you especially on how AI and HI are going to have to be working hand in hand because, and we talked about this before we hit record. I shared with Todd the quote from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, or the scene from Hitchhiker's Guide, where they ask the supercomputer, "What's the meaning of the universe? What's the meaning of life?" And it comes up with the answer 42. And what's implied is that the question is wrong. So we now, I think, are reaching an age where finding answers is no longer a challenge, right? Finding answers is no longer difficult. I mean, even just with the advent of the internet, but especially with AI, it's going to be asking the right questions and then, to put it in AI language, right, creating the right prompts, right? What is the challenge, and what is exactly what are we trying to solve for here? But I want to bring us back down to earth a little bit. In your industry, senior housing, how are you taking? What does marketing look like for you guys? Let's just go really, bare bones basics. What does marketing look like in your space?
Well, we have a big gap, Reade, between the prospect that needs senior housing, and who's searching for their adult mother or father who's 90 years old, they're 60 years old, and they need to understand what services can be provided in senior housing. So, I always say that our industry is stuck in ancient cultures because it hasn't changed in 20 years, and it presents value based on regulations. The regulations require us to do certain things, so they go out and they market these as features and benefits. So you can go to any website and you can look at the same thing. You can look at, 3 meals a day, 2 snacks, 24-hour watchful oversight, know the general condition of the resident, all these things that the regulations require you do. That's at the website, and someone's trying to gain clients by that. But what really needs to happen, and this goes to your AI comment because AI can help us with this, but what really needs to happen is we need to figure out a building that's in a 5-mile radius. What is the psychographic makeup of that 5 or 10-mile radius? What do they care about? And then what motivates them? What's their passion? I mean, it could be anything from, it could predominantly be a Catholic community. It could be raving Atlanta Falcon fans. It could be Atlantonians. It could be Buckhead downtown, ultra affluent country club people. It could be a boutique bed and breakfast, Madison, Monroe community that doesn't want all that, but wants to feel comfortable. But we have to figure that out, who those folks are. And that changes year to year as people age. And then once we find out what they want, we have to replicate what's inside our buildings. And then we have to go tell a story of that's going to connect with them, that's going to make a difference to them and cause an attraction. So the message has to attract people to us. It can't just be feature dumping, if that's a good word, just like we're just going to blast you with how great we are. I'm the owner and look what I did. So that's one message. And maybe to give you one more quick example is, right now we have software that's been built 10 years ago. It's built on clunky platforms. It's expensive. It hasn't changed in 10 years. And you know what happens? Disruption takes place for innovation to have space. And someone's always comes along in any industry and makes something more affordable, easier to use, and more adaptable. And the whole world is changing that way. The trick is how do you help people understand after years of buying cars? If I go to market and say, "Hey, Reade, I got an awesome new car. I want you to see it." You're like, "Yeah, you and 20 other people." Well, it's really different. I look at the engine, look at the upholstery, and you're like, maybe if I have time. So I'm totally missing the market. But if I say, "Reade, I have a self-driving car." No one else has a self-driving car. It drives by itself. That's what makes us unique. Now, all of a sudden, I have a unique value proposition that you might be interested in. And so in senior housing, our industry or healthcare or our product, Fin Technologies is an EHR. It predicts residence decline. It understands mood and behavior. It has AI built into it. It's less expensive. It's easy to use. It's like Instagram versus Windows 3.1. But I got to get to the marketplace and identify the people that have a need for that. And I got to be able to communicate that message in a very short time span. Because the last thing we're dealing with is, 10 years ago, before social media, maybe 15 years ago, a person's attention span was about 2 minutes. I could come to you and you're going to give me 2 minutes, Reade, to be wowed by me and maybe listen to me, right? So I have 2 minutes. Now it's about 20 seconds. If I don't wow you in 20 seconds, you're off to something new. So we have really got to have very focused messaging to create raving fans and attract them to us for a transaction in the future world.
All right, so in those 20 seconds, I mean, are you using short form video for this audience?
Yeah, video is good. People, people don't mind watching 20 seconds of video if it's entertaining, it's engaging, and it gives them a message. Then they'll dig deeper. Video is great. And then again, back to what we talked about earlier, talking about pain points, not telling you all about the electric car, but like, hey, are you tired, of having to figure out where you're traveling every week? Our electric car will get you there. You don't have to do anything. Just get in. Something like that immediately eliminates pain points. And in our industry, pain points are labor cost, or we don't have any more, our revenue is suppressed, or we don't have enough staff to know the condition of our residents. We need something that can help us. So that message has got to get out there. And that is the challenge of today's world. And maybe even having an agency that understands that they have a very limited window in time and scope, and have to target that audience with the right message. Maybe understanding we're going to test the message and we're going to pull it quick if it doesn't work, versus, an agency stuck in ancient cultures that's, we're going to do it this way, it's always worked, and having an expensive campaign that just misses the market is wrong, the media wrong, and it's the wrong message.
Yeah, for goodness sake, if you're talking to an agency and they come to you with a plan before they understand the market, then you should run for the hills. Couldn't agree more with that. And so here's what I am super curious about, and this is going to be something that you've sent me kind of down this path, and I appreciate the thinking here. It's going to be it's that intersection of predictive analytics, which involves AI, and it involves that human intelligence. We've talked about this confluence of those different trends, and then using that to address pain points, not just what was the term you used? You called it not benefit, feature dump. What'd you say?
Feature dumping.
Yeah, feature, not just feature dumping, because that's what we want to do so bad, because we love and we're so passionate about our product, and we're just like, look at all the things that it can do, and it's got this thing, and it's got this shiny piece of equipment or whatever it is. But we've got to remove ourselves from it and start with the problem. So these are some things that you're hitting on, some really key points and some really valuable insights that marketers and business leaders can take away. I want to end with one more question, if I can. So in terms of content, because our audience is really interested in marketing, what are some of the mediums that you guys are using to deliver that message? And you can talk about what you guys are doing literally in marketing in terms of, are you using email, or using social media? Are you heavy invested in ads? What's working in your space right now?
Wow, what a great question, Reade. And I am on a mission to try to understand the current market, because I read a lot and investigate a lot, and I'm hearing one thing, and then I have actual working experience on the ground that tells me other things. And I'm trying to figure it out. So I know from our perspective, senior housing and senior housing healthcare is very relational based. And we, being in the space for as long as our team has been, we know a lot of people, and we have really brought value to them. So, I think we have approximately 16,000 followers on LinkedIn that trust us, because we've proven that trust over the years. So I would share with the audience, if they have people that they bring value to, they trust them, and they're giving value away really for free. I know some people charge for intellectual property, and that's great at some point, but when you're delivering messages to the market via social media to bring value to them, to help them, where they're attracted to come every day because I want to see what Tod is saying, what Finn is saying, it creates raving fans. And it's much easier to ask for some time with them, promising them you're not going to be boring, then they'll give you that opportunity because you have some micro agreements with them over a period of time. They're raving fans and they know you've never been boring. So they're willing to give you that trip, if you will, for a demo. And I would say if you do that over a period of time, you can actually ask for them to pay for content as well. We're finding email works as well because a very connected email to our clients that's genuine versus an AI generated email does stand out. And again, if it's from a source that's trusted, that's performed over the years, they'll read it, but it still has to have something in it for them or they're not going to waste their time. So cold email does work. It's not a thing of the past. Social media works and video really gets a great response as well. So, but I still feel the marketing trifecta, knowing the market and what the market wants, matching it with the media we're talking and the right message, all those three things have to come together in order to get a return on the outreach.
Well, you're tugging at my business heartstrings, Tod. I mean, you're talking about when you talk about email marketing, and that's absolutely a core belief of ours is that all these different trends, all the different platforms and whatnot, they will change and they'll come and go. But I mean, that relationship you have with your audience who's opted in and who said, yeah, I trust you. You've created some trust. You've established some trust. I want more information from you. That's something that we feel like has and will continue to stand the test of time. But that trifecta, that market, media, and message, you can't just hit two of those right. You can't just get one of them really good and then the other two be so. So you've got to nail those three. The market, you've got to understand what they want. You've got to understand their problems. The media, you've got to be able to put it in a way that they're actually paying attention. Go where they're paying attention. Go where they're looking for answers. Then the message has got to resonate so that they perk their ears up and they say, okay, you said something that is addressing an issue that I've had. I want to know more. And that's, I think, to your point exactly of once you've done that, then they'll give you their time, right? But you've got to prove it through those
Right
three.
on. That's right on, Reade.
Great. Well, Tod, this has been a really great conversation. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you. And by the way, for those of you who are skeptical of this type of relationship, I reached out to Tod completely ice cold on LinkedIn, and I said, "Hey, look, this is what we're trying to do. I love the content that you're putting out. I think you're really addressing some important points in your market, and I think our audience would like to hear from you." And that's what started this relationship. So don't be nervous, guys. Just send that connection request. Just ask. And so, Tod, thank you for being receptive to my message on LinkedIn. Any parting note that you'd like to give our audience before we close out here?
Yeah, I did have one thing to share, Reade, for them to meditate on this week. So I read a great book by Mo Gaudat, who's the former CBO. You may have read it with former CBO of Google X. He wrote a book called Scary Smart. It's a great book. I mean, I don't agree with all of it, but he said, Tod, as I'm listening to his podcast, to the audio, this is how I heard it. Tod, he starts off 20 and it's probably 15 and maybe it's 10 years from now. We're going to be on a desert island and we'll either be doing one or two things. We'll be there drinking pina coladas together, enjoying because the AI is doing everything for us, or we're going to be hiding from the machines. But either way, it's coming and we need to embrace it. So parting words, Reade. Thank you so much for having me on your broadcast.
I love it. And with that, thank you all for joining us on the Grow Rogue podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, please make sure to like and subscribe. And if you're watching on or you're listening on your favorite platform, make sure to leave us a review and share this with a friend. Thank you all so much. We'll see you on the next one.